Thank you for staying with us. I have to tell you that Luis was planning to be here with us today, but last minute request made him to fly to San Francisco. He's in San Francisco, so it's 3 a.m. in the morning there. Wow. So I guess he had a lot of fun waiting for us until 3 a.m. So Luis, maybe just to let you sleep a little bit after that, I'll give you 10 minutes just to tell us a little bit what are you doing at the World Food Program, and then we'll let you just go and not necessary to be connected with us. Luis, thank you very much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, all, and especially because you're giving me the chance to speak first in the panel, given the fact that I am on the other side of the world at 3, almost, it's already 4 in the morning here in San Francisco. However, it is a pleasure for me to be with you virtually, and I want to especially thank Sustainable Brands Madrid for giving me the chance to talk to you about what the World Food Program is doing to end hunger and malnutrition around the globe. But anyways, how is this work of the UN relates to the paradigm of in supply chains? Well, one can say that this is a matter that concerns only to businessmen and private sector, but not necessarily, because the UN is now talking about food systems instead of supply chains. But what is a food system? The food system is a complex web of activities that involves the production, the processing, the transport, consumption of food. But there are issues that concern the food system, which includes, and these are very complex issues, that includes the governance and economics of food production, its sustainability, also the degree to which we waste food, and this is something that really happens pretty much in developed countries. The waste of food is incredible. How much food production affects the natural environment, and how this impacts on the individual and the population health. But anyway, the food system includes not only the elements of how we get our food from farm to fork, but also all the processes of an infrastructure that is involved in feeding the population. Systems can also exist within systems. For example, there are farming systems, agricultural ecosystems, economic systems, and social systems. Within those are further subsets of water systems, energy systems, finance systems, marketing systems, and so on and so forth. But why is the UN talking about food systems now? Because there is a massive problem of hunger and malnutrition around the globe. Topped with the growing number of the world's population, which is forecast to exceed 10 billion people by 2050, leading to an increasing demand for food and placing further pressure on finite resources. There is also global recognition that the policies that fed the world nowadays are no longer fit for purpose. Urgent reform is essential to achieve the goal of universally accessible and affordable healthy diets, which are delivered by food systems that should be environmentally, economically, and socially sustainable. The global problems facing food systems now amount to a twofold crisis. First, problems in addressing malnutrition in all its forms, including, and this is something that is not necessarily a problem for developing nations, includes undernutrition, obesity, and micronutrient deficiencies. And this is something that we have seen happening in the developed countries more often. Food systems are also failing to provide affordable, healthy diets for 3 billion people. We like to think that this is the time to talk about democratization and access to healthy food. This really affects their health of people, their mental and physical development, especially of children, and the earning potential of those children throughout their lives. Second, food systems are failing their own environmental system, putting a massive burden from the supply perspective, because food production also causes degradation of soil and biodiversity loss. In fact, we know that agricultural-related activities not only feed the world's population, but also account for a quarter of global greenhouse gas emissions. Overconsumption and waste further exacerbate these issues by placing unnecessary pressure on the food system, especially, as I said before, in the supply side. For same reasons, the United Nations decided to act alongside with governments and other international stakeholders, because otherwise, this situation is set to worsen in the future. According to the recently held COP26, one of the most serious threats to humanity is climate change and the loss of biodiversity. On the other hand, you have natural disasters, hurricanes, storms, earthquakes, droughts, forest fires, which are all increasingly more often and prolonged than before, having devastating effects on food production worldwide, particularly for developing nations, where the effects of climate change have resulted in an increase in poverty, hunger, and undernutrition. Therefore, it must be ensured that food systems adapt to climate change and are sufficiently resilient to continue producing and feeding people. Just to give you a quick gaze on the world's current situation regarding hunger. Across the world, up to 811 million people do not have enough food. According to recent estimates, 45 million people in 43 countries are at risk of sliding into famine, the most extreme form of hunger, which can result in death from starvation or disease. Unfortunately, many countries in conflict areas are closer to famine like no one else, especially those countries in Yemen, South Sudan, Madagascar, which are closely, if not already there, in the grip of famine. And although food systems have generally responded to the challenges posed by COVID-19, and this is another shock, this was an external shock that has created a terrible consequences for many countries and hunger around the world. This is just highlighted how fragile and precarious the world's food systems have become. But having said this and explaining the difficulties of what a food system is, what is the World Food Program doing about it? Well, let me tell you that WFP has a double mandate. On the one hand, aids in emergencies or humanitarian crisis, providing to the victims of war, civil conflict, droughts, floods, earthquakes, hurricanes, crop failures, and natural disasters. And on the other, provides technical assistance to governments on development issues, particularly helping them in resilience and strengthening the people and communities by applying a development lens in the humanitarian response. WFP also works in developing projects focusing on nutrition, especially for mothers and children, addressing malnutrition from the early stages through programs targeting the first 1,000 days from conception to a child's second birthday, and later through school meals. So when WFP works hand in hand with governments and other stakeholders, including the private sector, also helps in fostering the transformation of food systems. As said before, once the emergency is covered, WFP works on resilience in order to ensure that people rebuild better after disasters. Resilient measures, in fact, are cost-effective in two counts. First, because they reduce the need to spend on cycling crisis responses and help overcome development gaps. WFP has acquired a comparative advantage in building resilience for food security and nutrition. WFP has also invested in early warning and preparedness systems, including supply chain management, logistics, and emergency communications, that allow governments to prevent crises or respond quickly when they happen. WFP is also helping to develop national capacities to manage disaster risk through finance and risk transfer tools such as weather risk insurance. Our expertise includes vulnerability analysis and mapping, as well as support to social protection systems. However, even with the work of WFP, the transformation of the food system should be capable to overcome hunger, to prevent malnutrition, obesity, and unhealthy diets, and lastly, to help maintain our planet healthy by being more sustainable and resilient to feed the world. Food systems also need to move beyond addressing hunger to address all forms of malnutrition, as I said before. They need to deliver universal access to healthy diets. We need to talk about now how to democratize the access of healthy food for all. WFP is also doing that through the perhaps one of the best programs ever, which is the school meals program, which improves the nutrition of school children and boosts local economies by linking school feeding programs with local smallholder farmers to provide millions of school children in 46 countries with food that is safe, diverse, nutritious, but above all, local food. The benefits of this are evident and manifold. The schools provide local farmers with a predictable outlet for their products, leading to a stable income, more investments, and higher productivity. The children enjoy healthy, diversified food. This makes it more likely that they will stay in school and perform better and improve their adult job prospects. At the community level, homegrown school feeding initiatives promote nutrition education and better eating habits and encourages the diversification of production with a special emphasis on local crops. Community involvement, in turn, enhances the sustainability of programs. To end, WFP is contributing from its own mandate and perspective to transform food systems by aiding governments addressing challenges on their own in order to end hunger and malnutrition. There is, of course, a balance of approach when it comes to assist countries in emergencies, because after the emergency, the country needs to recover and become more resilient and self-sufficient in food production. However, the variables that are always present make more challenging the work of WFP, meaning the increased number of conflicts, natural disasters, and other economic shocks that have become more often and longer. Well, with this, I think that I had covered more or less the linkages between food systems and supply chains and the challenges of the world to feed its own population, and how the private sector and companies need to act together with governments in order to achieve the said transformation of food systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I was in a hurry and I realized that I didn't introduce the panel. I didn't even introduce you, Luis. Sorry for that. Luis Fernando Carranza Cifuentes is from Guatemala originally, has been working for the Ministry of International Affairs for Guatemala and being diplomatic all over the world, holding different responsibilities and representing his country. And currently, he's president of the executive board of the World Food Program. They were awarded with the Nobel Peace Prize in 2020, and we invited him because in this panel that we want to talk about supply chain, clearly one of the big problems in the world is everybody having access to food and to survive, right? And we thought that having a figure like Luis here to reflect on these topics will be very interesting for us. Luis, here we are talking today about how, and I wonder if you have any message for us, how can we contribute to the great work you are doing at the World Food Program as a companies or individuals and citizens? How can we contribute to this program?
Well, I think that companies and individuals have, of course, a tremendous role in transforming food systems. And I think that the better we are informed on what are the problems around the world in terms of feeding, the poor and feeding the most vulnerable populations will give us perhaps more engagement in finding the solutions. There are good examples of how companies can get involved in the process of change. It is very clear to me that for a successful transformation of food systems, the private sector has to be involved and to participate actively. As we have already mentioned, the problems of the food system, the loss of biodiversity, the emissions of the food industry, especially the agriculture, accounts to a good chunk of CO2 emissions around the world, and there is also becoming more often that there is a competition for land and water, and this is something that clearly has to do with how the private sector and the companies produce their food. Companies should actually shift to a more sustainable production pattern, and not only those companies that are in the agricultural sector, but also those that are involved in the supplies, in the service supply, the processing, the retail, the catering, and the consumption. They all have a critical role in supporting the transformation of food systems and making them a little bit more sustainable. But I believe that governments have also to work hand in hand with the private sector. In my view, governments have, of course, the key for getting the private sector and the companies involved in these efforts, perhaps by promoting tax incentives or other incentives that the private sector will engage to. I believe that also the private sector should also see how to reformulate their products and standardize food labeling and packaging, because these are the elements that are actually getting into the final customer. And what they see in the packaging influences the capacity of one person deciding whether they want to have this product or not. Of course, there are more questions than answers now, and I believe that the consumer will become more aware and will start asking the companies to improve access and availability to more nutritious food. And we have seen this in developing nations, where there is also not only undernutrition, but malnutrition, obesity, because consumers at the other end are not getting the information that is needed. And just having access to healthy foods requires a big effort, not only for governments, but companies to really engage into this. I believe that the UN has a strategy to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. I heard that in the past panel, they were questioning whether the Sustainable Development Goals will be achieved. I also have my doubts. But one of the issues that the Sustainable Development Goals is covering is, of course, end hunger and malnutrition. But to achieve that and to really cater for more than 10 billion people, inhabitants of the planet Earth in 2050, we need to double the agricultural production. And we need to ensure that this production is sustainable. And the role the companies have is even more greater, because they need to really reach the consumer with healthy options and to really engage into making a change that will make this a better world.
Okay, thank you, Luis. We will continue here with some examples of companies that are working on the supply chain. But thank you very much for the extra effort to being awake and waiting for us. And now we excuse you, and you can get some sleep. And if we want to stay, it's perfect. But feel free. Okay, thank you very much for staying with us.
Thank you. Anyways, today is Black Friday in the United States, so probably people are already gathering in the entrance of Macy's, so I may join them in a little bit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so let's continue with this panel that was with the idea of talking a little bit. This morning before coffee, we were talking about marketing and moonshots. This panel is more hard. We are going to talk about the supply chain and how we put into practice this idea of sustainability and how we transform our way of doing things, looking at the supply chain. For this purpose, we have our three speakers here. José Antonio Echeverría, he's a Chief Customer Service and Supply Chain Officer at Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners. Thank you, José Antonio, for coming. Then Juan José Feijó from Brambles. He's the Global Head of Sustainability at Brambles. And finally, we have Antonio Espinosa de los Monteros. He's CEO of Awara. And he was a last-minute guest speaker because we had someone else, but has some also last-minute problems. And Antonio was so kind to jump into and join us for this discussion. So also, Antonio, thank you for your extra effort. So I'll give you 10 minutes each one of you, just to tell a little bit what are you doing, three different companies with three different approaches, and we can see from the different experiences that there are also different ways of approaching the same problems with different solutions and different proposals there. So let's start with José Antonio. And Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners has, as he will tell us probably, this goal of net zero in 2040. I guess that to sail with a big boat like yours, it's difficult to move in the middle of the ocean, the boat, and so such a goal of getting the net zero in 2040 means that you have a lot of things to do, and probably you will explain us what are you doing and how are you trying to achieve this goal. You have the gadget there, and 10 minutes for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan, and good morning, everyone. Really honored to be here and being able to share what we are doing at Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners in our road to being a net zero company. Well, let me start with introducing what is who we are in Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners. We are one of the biggest consumer goods company in the world, and we are by far the biggest Coca-Cola bottler in the world. We have the honor of supplying 1,075.75 million of customers, more than 600 million of consumers across 29 countries in 3 different continents. And one of the characteristics of our business is that we are a global company with a global brand, but with a strong local footprint. And if you ask me to summarize what is CCP about is great beverage done by great people, delivering great service done in a sustainable way for a common best future. But let me talk a bit about our action on climate. That's a program that we introduced 1 year ago, was presented by our CEO, and clearly reflects the ambitions that we have as a company in order to achieve a net zero company by 2040. But before moving into the contents of the program, of the action on climate, let me share with you which is our breakdown of our greenhouse gases emissions. And you can see here that what are the reductions from versus 2010. So this road on climate is not new for us, and we have been working in the different areas, in the different scopes of our carbon footprint for years. But clearly, we felt that it was the moment to speed up and really to take a leading seat on this topic. So for that reason, we launched our Action on Climate program, as I have already mentioned, clearly hand by hand with the Coca-Cola Company. And if you ask me to summarize which are the commitments, which are the ambition that we have in this Action on Climate, as Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific partners, I will summarize in these 4 points. The first one, the one that Joan has already mentioned, is we have the ambition of being net zero by 2040. But maybe 2040, and we have been talking about, we have been listening about 2040 maybe is too far away. So what we pretend is to have at least short-term objectives or closer objectives. So the first one is by 2030, we commit to reduce our carbon footprint by 30% versus our current situation. The third element that is covering in this plan is about giving sustainability and our carbon action a top level in our company in terms of decision-making process. So for that reason, we have included our sustainability targets as part of the retribution of the main managers of the company. So that's part of our long-term incentive plan for the entire company. And the fourth is, as Scope 3 is clearly our biggest area in terms of carbon emissions. Clearly, we have a commitment in order to engage with our suppliers. And we commit that by 2023, all of our suppliers has to have as a scientific-based target of carbon footprint, and all of them, they have to use renewable energies by 2023. As we are talking about the house today, that's one of the key elements of all the discussions today. This is basically what are our plans and how we pretend to really reduce our emissions, at least in this first stage, until 30% by 2030. It's about working in the different areas of our carbon footprints. It's about ingredients, about packaging, it's about our manufacturing footprint, transport, and refrigeration. But if you ask me what are the 3 key challenges in this area and how we are tackling that, let me highlight. The first one is packaging. Clearly, we are working very closely with our suppliers in this point in 3 elements. The house, it's about lightweighting, reducing the weight and the materials in our packaging. The second is about the recycled content in our packaging, no matter it's aluminum, it's plastic, wherever. And the third is, as we have already mentioned, engaging with our suppliers to ensure that they use renewable energies in order to reduce their carbon footprint. Second point, that is a big challenge also, is everything related with manufacturing. And what we have decided is continue with the progress that we have been doing during the last years, is to go for a carbon neutral plant projects. We have 80 plants all across the globe, and our commitment is to be carbon neutral in each of them. So we have just started during this year our carbon neutral program, certified by an international standard, PIS 2060, and basically during this year we have been able to achieve that 3 plants, one of them in Spain, I'm very proud of that, has been already certified as carbon neutral. But clearly, this is a big challenge in our roadmap. And the third one is about transportation. Clearly, I think that this is a big issue for the entire industry, how we are going to be able to reduce in an effective manner the use of the carbon footprint from our transportation. Basically, I have to say that we are working in different angles. The first one I would say is that we are moving a significant part of our transportation from trucks to trains with a significantly better footprint. Second one is we are starting to work with electric vehicles, but what I mean electric vehicles, I don't mean small vehicles, but 20 tons trucks. And the third point is clearly reducing the number of kilometers that our products need to do to make in order to reach to our consumers. So it's improving our local footprint and our local connections to reduce the number of kilometers. So basically this is our plan. Those are our main challenges. And clearly, as I said, we are clearly committed with our Action on Climate program to really continue working on that. That's in a nutshell, Joan, the plan for Euro-Pacific partners.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Also for giving us 2 extra minutes that we try to recover. So thank you, José Antonio. Now I would like to turn to Juanjo. Juanjo Feijo is, as I said, the global head of sustainability at Brambles. Brambles was named the second most sustainable company globally in 2021 by Barron's Magazine, and I think that they have a very good example on how to include the circularity in the economy of circularity in how they manage the supply chain. So probably you will also talk about this to us. So thank you, Juanjo.
Absolutely, and it's great to be back in a physical event. And I'm going to talk today about regeneration. But before I do that, I would like to highlight the importance of events like this, of getting together and sharing experiences and sharing challenges and sharing problems. And I want to do that because I'm going to talk today about how we are implementing this idea of regeneration in our own company. But that idea was born in a sustainable brands. Probably you don't remember it, but there was but I was I don't know if you remember. I was with you in the sustainable brands of IESE in Barcelona a few years ago, and we were there discussing about how can we reduce our impacts in the supply chain. It was about reducing, and it was a great discussion. We didn't want to do greenwashing. It was an honest discussion on how can we reduce the impacts. But then I remember that Bill McDonough, got on the stage and with a simple sentence, at least he shocked me and he shocked some of my colleagues. And this is when we started thinking about regeneration. He said, "Less bad does not equal good." That made me think. I said, okay, is this really what we want to do? Is to be, to have less negative impacts? Cannot we do something better? So, and this is the origin of the idea of regeneration. This is the origin of the idea of net positive that Paul Polman talked this morning. By the way, the book is here. I recommend it. It's great. And this is the idea behind this concept of nature-based solutions. I think there is a lot of overlap between the three of them. A few years later, we came with this vision that actually we presented at Sustainable Brands. I don't know, maybe we are coming to Sustainable Brands too often, but we enjoy that. And we presented our vision and our ambition to pioneer the first regenerative supply chain. And this is what is the idea behind the regenerative supply chain. We know that supply chains are operating and have been operating since the Industrial Revolution, consuming natural resources, assuming that we have infinite natural resources, and producing waste, considering that the Earth is an infinite landfill and we can put as much waste as we want, waste or pollution, CO2, etc. We know that that is not true, and now we want to reverse that. We want to create a supply chain that rather than consuming resources and producing waste will consume existing waste and create natural resources. I think as a vision this is great, but it's extremely challenging and extremely difficult, but we have started to do some things there and I would like to share with you today how. First of all, Coca-Cola needs no introduction. We do need a little bit of introduction because we are a B2B company, and we are a company called Brambles that operates under the brand of CHEP, and we are in the space of reusable packaging. We rent, we don't sell, we rent reusable packaging to companies like the companies that we have on the stage today, and in form of pallets, crates, and containers. We have been recognized as a perfect example, or a very good example of the circular economy. We will give one pallet to one manufacturer. They will put their drinks on it, for instance. It will go throughout the whole supply chain, and then we will make sure that we will recover, repair it if needed, and give it to someone else. Not the first manufacturer, someone else. So it is an example of sharing economy and collaborative economy. Sometimes the pallets, crates, and containers are used by one manufacturer and then later by their competitors. And this is where the efficiencies come up. And we are super proud of this business model, and we put a sustainability program behind it. And we were in the point that we were achieving zero impacts in some of our material sustainability impacts, like deforestation. We achieved the certified and controlled timber in more than 65, in every country where we operated. And as we were approaching zero, we thought, okay, what is the next thing? And naturally, the idea of regeneration, came into our minds and into our strategy and into our plans, okay? And then it's about the how now. So I think every time I share this idea of regeneration, people like it. It's really easy to get. It's really easy to get, and it is inspiring, I think. But the devil is in the details, and the devil is in the actions, I will say. And we started very early to say that we need to move to action immediately. We don't want to wait 20 years. This is not a target for 2050. We have, we have targets for a longer term, but we want to take action immediately. Like you were saying before, some of your targets are for 2023. Those are the scales that we need to manage. So first of all, we learned that we need to think in terms of systems. If we talk about regeneration, necessarily we talk about end-to-end supply chain. In our case, we use timber from the forest to the waste, or to the end of life. And we need to take into account every player in the whole value chain. The targets, short-term, relatively short-term, as I said, 2025, and delivery from day one. Probably something interesting as well is that when we saw the challenge that we have in front of us, we acknowledged that we had to do this. We had to do this if we wanted to continue be leaders in sustainability, because we know that sustainability is paying back. We are an example of a company that took sustainability into our core activities, and I can tell you that every single day we are seeing the value. The value in terms of impact to the planet and the societies, but also the value in terms of the finance, of the financials. Customers, we have discussions with our customers, not just on cost and quality, but on sustainability. We have seen that our customers, they need to help your sustainability targets. We need to be in a good position to be able to help them. Otherwise, maybe in 2 or 3 years, we will not be suppliers of these companies. Employees love to work for a company that is rather than being just a packaging company, a leader in circular economy and in regeneration in the world. And they join our company at every level, from senior level to not so senior, because of that. We are helping governments to shape what circular economy should be in practice. And also I want to highlight the importance for investors. In the last couple of years, we are living a revolution in terms of the financial markets. How are the financial markets behaving? There is in COP. I was in COP a couple of weeks ago, and there was this piece of news: $130 trillion will be mobilized for the transition to low carbon emissions. That's a huge amount of money, and we want to be part of that. So the integration of sustainability within the business interest, on regeneration within the business interest, has to be complete. And just as an example, I will tell you that we were talking before in one of the panels that the CFO should be our best friend. Well, in our case, it's not that it's our best friend. I report into the CFO. Sustainability and finance are the same function. So it is my responsibility to make the company more financially viable, and it is the responsibility of the whole and powerful finance team to make sure that we deliver on our ambitious sustainability commitments. So if we talk, I think that's quite unique. I don't know many companies where that happens, but if we talk about business and sustainability integration, I can tell you that it's working. So if someone wants to take the example and bring it home. One of the things that we also did when we started with this challenging program of regeneration was to be humble and recognize that we don't have all the solutions, that we don't have all the answers, we don't even have all the questions. That is even more concerning. So yeah, we participated with Quiero, who help us in a series of dialogues with the thought leaders of the world in sustainability, reflecting together on why, what is regeneration? What do we mean when we say regeneration? How do we apply it to supply chains? What are the challenges that we are facing? Because there are other companies out there that are going through this avenue of regeneration, and how can we make it happen tomorrow? I encourage, these are podcasts that are available, and I encourage you that you listen to them if you're interested in this regenerative revolution movement. And finally, what I would like to say is that we are an action-oriented company. We are an operational company, supply chain. We love to have a vision. We love to have an inspiring sentence or idea that moves us, but we are about delivery. We are about delivery because we are supply chain. So one of the things that we did is to make sure that we will start, with regenerative projects from day one, and we will deliver on regenerative projects from year one. Actually, this was a surprise for me. I thought it was going to take longer, but since we made a strong consultation process within the company to what regenerative means, the areas had the ownership of this regenerative vision, and they started to deliver really quickly. And I will give you a couple of examples of achievements and challenges. Well, we are already a carbon neutral company for our own operations. Let's be humble. Scope 1 and 2, the real challenge is on Scope 3, and we are learning about the challenges of Scope 3. In our case, transportation is one of the key areas, and frankly, I don't know of any big company that can even measure Scope 3 emissions accurately today. No, if there is anyone there, please let me know, because we will be very, very, very happy to learn about it. We started, if we talk about regeneration and timber, we use a lot of wood. We started also to create new sources of timber in places where there was no sustainable practices, or they were desertified. You know, that is regeneration in action. And we learned that it is difficult to do this at scale. I'll stop now because I just went over time, but hopefully you will share some excitement about this regenerative idea, and hopefully we can discuss it later in the panel. Thanks.
Thank you. I also have the point that you mentioned at the beginning. No, maybe in a few years, some of you that are here listening will be at the stage saying, when I was in Sustainable Brands in Madrid in 2021, I was inspired by, and we did. So that's it. That will be very good.
That's what we are here today, I think. All of us.
Thank you. So finally, Antonio. Antonio Espinosa de los Monteros, he's CEO of Wara. We have already had the chance to taste the water, but maybe we don't know a little bit what's behind in the production process and the supply chain, and also that what they do with the revenues and what they do to use the revenues of the company and the benefits of the company to help people that are in need of clear water, drinking water, to get the access to the clean water. He will explain us better than me. So Antonio, thank you for jumping into the conversation in the last minute, for your generosity, and the floor is yours. 10 minutes for you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Well, I'm here replacing Alberto from Smilit. And just to say, Smilit is an amazing company. You have to search it. Really, amazing. So I'm sad you cannot listen to him, because what they do is really great, and especially for this topic we're talking about now. So I'm going to try to be at the minimum level he would surely deliver it. In Awara is kind of I mean, it needs a lot of explanation compared to CHEP and Coca-Cola, definitely. So what we do basically is, our mission as a company is to bring clean drinking water to people in need in developing countries. And we also sell water bottles, but our mission is not to sell water bottles or to sell products. What we do basically is we sell products to generate profit, to be able to invest 100% of the profits we generate. So we're a non-profit company, which is kind of contradictory, but it's possible. We invest 100% of our profits in projects in developing countries to give access to clean water to people in need. But then I think it's interesting to think about the value chain, because one of the first questions we asked ourselves when we decided that we would be able to fund our projects, our water access projects. We drill wells, we basically little infrastructures, small infrastructures in very rural and poor communities. How we fund these projects is through selling products. And the impact that these products have on the planet was a main concern from the beginning. So value chain was something key to really be comfortable with ourselves and to feel we can be coherent with our mission. And well, the first issue was, okay, we are going to try to generate positive impact in Congo, Ethiopia, Cameroon, wherever. We work in 19 countries today, but what we do with our products, the impact we're generating, it doesn't make sense to forget what we're doing, to forget the footprint we're having on the planet. So the first question was, okay, we're going to sell water because it made sense in terms of, I mean, the concept was very clear. We sell water to be able to bring water to others. But then what does it mean to sell water? So it has an environmental impact. Well, for us, the analysis was divided into two main vectors: carbon footprint and recyclability of our packaging. And it was a big effort for us since, imagine, we were 23 years old, approaching big plastic providers, saying, hey guys, we've seen that it is possible to recycle plastic and make bottles out of recycled plastic. So we are here to change the world and help us because it's going to be amazing. And they were like, okay, how many bottles you sold last year? I was like, well, no, zero. And how many companies have you funded, or what's your professional experience before? No, zero. We were still in college. So it was like, okay, guy, try to show some experience and then come back. But then one company, the biggest company for this in this sector, they listened and they said, okay, this makes sense, and I'm going to believe these three crazy guys. And they said, okay, let's develop this project. Let's produce the first 100% recycled plastic bottle in the history of Europe with this crazy three guys in Spain. So they believed in us, and they were a fundamental part of the development we did, which took us to yes, produce the first 100% recycled plastic bottle in Europe. And for us, it made a lot of sense because in terms of carbon footprint, it's the best. It's comparably the best packaging solution for drinks because the recycling process makes it much less intensive. But then also in terms of recyclability and waste management, the idea was amazing because you are not producing more plastic. You're using something that is waste and turning it into your new raw material. So giving value to what today is a waste is an amazing thing. I think we have to stop looking at waste as something we want to avoid and start looking at it as a potential value asset. And, well, in general, I didn't prepare a presentation, I'm sorry. These guys showed amazing stuff. I don't have anything prepared, but I just wanted to say that, in general, we believe that sustainability, real sustainability in the value chain is basically the intersection of three concepts: environmental sustainability, social sustainability, and economical sustainability. If you're doing great things for the planet, but you forget people, that is not sustainable. If you're doing great things for people and you forget the planet, that is not sustainable. And if you do great things for people and the planet, but you're not economically sustainable, you're going to be broken very soon. So I think we have to consider these three things and understand that intersection is sustainability. So I think the challenge is quite complex because you can be in a market in which advancing towards one direction might undermine another. So it's not an easy thing. I think sustainability in the value chain is quite a very complex conversation. I think we've had some years in which, well, easy communications and the need to position a company into this conversation has led to miscommunication, and I think, but I think in general sectors are starting to do things quite well. Big companies as well. I think we have two great examples here, and well, not much more to say. Just thank you for this space.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you very much. And thank you also for reminding us of the social dimension of sustainability. And so we're lucky to having you here to just remind us. We are a little bit out of time, but I cannot resist to ask you a very short question with a very short answer from each one of you. Let's start. Before, when they were talking about the colors of the innovation and the moonshot, one of the colors was transparency. What do you think about how transparency fits into this new supply chain, and how does it change things you are doing when you introduce transparency?
Well, I think that is a really interesting question. I think transparency is one of the key elements because the companies are also about trust. Okay, and clearly in CCP, transparency in all we do, and especially in this sustainability topic, is one of the keys. So, just I'm trying to be short and to give back some time. I would like to mention some of the things that we are doing in terms of transparency. The first thing is that CCP as company is listed in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index for 6 years in a row. Clearly, that comes with an obligation of transparency, and there are not many companies that has the privilege to be listed in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. We are part of the Carbon Disclosure Project in the A list, so that also comes with a level of commitment in terms of transparency, and clearly, I will invite any of you to download from our website our integrated sustainability report, where we have all the finance numbers, all the people numbers, but also all the sustainability numbers. And clearly, we are publishing that in an open way and sharing with all of our stakeholders. As I mentioned, transparency is key in order to build the trust that we need as company, as society.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Juanjo, what about, you mentioned leadership and the importance of leadership, but also thinking on how, what are the levers that leadership could have and to manage all this movement and this transformation?
In our case, it's the combination of an inspiration, someone that everyone will buy, and immediate action to demonstrate that what we are talking about, it is possible. And the main lever to achieve our regenerative vision is to have a systemic view. If we do things within our four walls, this will never happen. By definition, regeneration in the supply chain needs to be systemic. So you need to go to the very beginning of the supply chain until, well, your company and the very end. Just a couple of examples. I think what we are doing now is to encourage every employee to participate in this regenerative revolution, and it has been quite easy, I will say, and that's great because through the years we have built the culture of circular economy, what value it brings for the business. So when we started to socialize the idea of regeneration, everyone wanted to get on board, and now we have a lot of ambassadors and advocates of the idea within the company and out. And at the beginning of the supply chain, it's really far away. I can tell you, for instance, that there is this word, that everyone says, and sometimes we don't really understand what it means, that is collaboration. If you want to collaborate with your tier one supplier, that's probably relatively easy. If you want to collaborate with the supplier of the supplier of the supplier, in our case, the forest where we get the timber from, that is extremely difficult. We need to be closer to them. And, we completed our certification program. Last year. Now we want to go regenerative, but this is not something that you can just pass through the supply chain. You need to be on site, working with the landowners, working with the foresters to make sure that you understand their problems. For example, in a country where we were starting to operate now, we wanted certified timber and a regeneration program, and the landowner told us, well, why am I going to spend this money if here the activity is not very profitable and I need to feed my children? You cannot just pass a requirement, that's it. You need to go there, working together, maybe create an alliance with other foresters, maybe creating a program to allow them to access to these sustainable forest practices, etc. So I think if you want to go regenerative, you need to go systemic. And if you need to go systemic, you need to tackle the whole supply chain since the very beginning. Extremely difficult, but also it produces resilience. And Well, that will give me for 5 minutes. I will stop now, but it pays off as well, because if you're closer to your suppliers, when we have crisis of supply like what we had, then your supply could be secured. So resilience and sustainability hand in hand.
Okay, good. Thank you. And Antonio, when Juanjo was before thinking on the impact on or the reaction of the financial markets, I was thinking, what about a social entrepreneur like you? No? How do you appraise the reaction of the financial markets? How they value the social impact that you may have in your business, no? and your operations? How do they react? Are they on board or not?
Well, I think with a project like Awara in the beginning, the kind of personality that takes you to start something like this is a personality that probably underestimates or overestimates the impact that a concept like this is going to make on an investor. So in the beginning, you just think, okay, there are people out there with money. This project makes sense. They're going to invest. It doesn't matter if it's not so profitable, you know. With time, you understand that that is possible as an exception of the system, but that is not scalable. So we've been an exception of the system, probably, and my obsession now is to try to generate models that generate positive impact in this intersection of the three things. So economical is one very important component, and well, I think more and more investors have the pressure, the inside pressure, but also the outside pressure to invest in sustainable assets. I think it's a trend. I think it's necessary. I think transparency is very good for that because, well, in 20 years ago, no one knew what you were investing in, and it didn't matter at all. Today, you can know what a bank is doing, what an investor is doing, what a VC is doing, where they invested, and that makes you much more well. That makes the necessity of being coherent much more well. I think much more transparent for anyone. So transparency, I think. Technology has been a very cool thing for this because technology brings transparency, and transparency brings better uses. And well, in general, I think again this triangle. We need to understand and to find ways to be in this intersection, because if not, you can have exceptions to the system, but if you want to do something scalable and replicable, it's necessary to be in that spot, in that center.
Great, thank you. So, José Antonio, Juanjo, Antonio, thank you very much for your insights and for sharing with us your experience. So, big applause to them. Thank you. That's it. I will continue. Thank you very much.